Hey, friends, come on in here, sit down. Let me see your face for a second before we get into anything because it has been a while. I know I am behind, delayed. Uh, yeah, listen, usually we do our friend check in, so we're going to start there. How have you been? Don't lie to me. It's been a few weeks since I've actually checked in on you. I've been giving you all of me, but I have not heard about you. Now, make sure you drink your water and mind the business that pays you. I would say something else, but here's what it is. Um, so before we get started, I do need you to settle in before we start this one. Go ahead, get your snack, your road snack, your snack, your house snack, your couch snack, whatever kind of snack you get, whatever you need, okay? Get your water, get your wine, whatever makes your boat float. And get your edges laid. Okay. Now, friend, if you are new here and you just pulled up on me and you don't know me yet, let me go ahead and put you on. I'm Meika, and true crime is my passion. But if you've been listening for a couple of episodes now, you realize that I don't always stick to true crime. I don't, one, like to be boxed in, and two, I'm nosy and I'm curious about a lot of things. So I'm like that friend that you're going to call to find out about any and everything, one of them ABC agencies. Okay. Now, this side eye, it does go everywhere, friend. So that nosiness, just know it sees everything. It sees everything. Today, we are on killer drive, killer lane, killer something, right? We are dealing with a killer, a serial killer at that. And I do need you to brace yourself before we go one step further because this is not your average one name victim story. It is got layers, friend. Okay. And I was gonna insert the joke, but I'm gonna keep my joke to myself. No, friend, I'm not gonna tell you my joke. But again, this one is heavy. It deals with elderly women and they mostly live alone. So it's not gonna be pretty. Um, and if you are wondering, yes, I am at almost it's actually past 1 p.m. It's 1:08 on this fine Wednesday, just getting this episode to you. Life has lifed, life has continued to life, and I just haven't been able to get back on track. All right, since residency. Charge it to my head, not my heart. I'm back. Okay. Now, again, before we get started, this is a dealing with elderly people, so it is a little bit rougher. And again, if you are new here, I glitch sometimes and buffer in real time. So if that's what you are experiencing, it is not nothing wrong with your radio. It's just me. Now, either stick with it or stick with it because you're here now. You don't have a choice. Now, um, we are, friend, going to be in Los Angeles, 1972. And let me tell you, friend, before we even get into it, I have not looked at this file in a couple of weeks, and it as life happened, it just kind of sat there and gathered some dust. But to pick it back up and be just as astonished as I was when I first read it and went through these documents, baby. But again, all right. Los Angeles, 1972. There is an elderly woman found in her own home, sexually assaulted, strangled, a pillow left over her face, like whoever did it couldn't stand to watch it or just didn't want her to see him. She would not be the last friend, not by a long shot. Now, over the next 17 years, women just like her living alone, trusting their own front doors to be locked, not be locked, whatever, right? And these are happening in 2 different parts of Los Angeles County, years apart from each other. And now this is the part that really, like, blew my mind. The papers gave these 2 waves of murder completely different names. They were not tied to each other in any sense of the word, okay? 2 different monsters as far as anybody could see and was investigating, and 2 separate task force, 2 separate manhunts, and nobody, and I mean nobody, connects them together for a very long time, and it was just a happenstance. But go ahead, friend, pull up a chair because today we are connecting the dots, and it took the LAPD, buffering for a time, LAPD, literally decades to go ahead and connect themselves to this. Now, Imma go ahead and put on my handy dandy glasses, friend, so you go ahead and put yours on because this is not just a body count we finna run through tonight, okay? Or today. This man evaded capture for damn near 40 years between his first kill and the day they finally put his name on these murders and rapes. Okay. And I promise you, the way that it finally happened, friend, is not what you're going to be expecting because it's not what I was expecting either. But won't put nothing past nobody. Now, we're going to go through this the way it actually happened, day by day, woman by woman, one at a time. Okay. So you see exactly who he is and exactly what he did. And I need you to hold on to the opening image, friend, because from that moment, one woman, one home, one pillow caused by the same person at the same time. By the time we get to the end of this, excuse me, buffer in real time, that image is going to have repeated itself more times than either of us really truly want to count. And so we're gonna jump off by saying his name because I keep saying him, and you don't even know who we talking about yet. His name is John Floyd Thomas Jr., okay? Now, this man, before he ever killed anybody, was somebody. You know, I always like to know what their background was like. There was not a whole lot of information on his background, but probably because of the type of life that he had. So he was born July 26, 1936 in Los Angeles. His mother died when he was just 12 years old. And so after that, he was bounced around from house to house between his aunts and a godmother, and he went to LA public schools, specifically went to Manuel Arts High School before he joined the Air Force in 1956. That old off we go into the wild blue. Yeah, you know. And he got stationed at Nellis in Nevada, which is not far from Las Vegas. Now, he had a superior officer here who puts it on record and in writing and called him late and slovenly. You know how bad you gotta be to make somebody use a word like slovenly to say you are slob? That's wild. Now, he eventually got a dishonorable discharge. And yes, friend, we're gonna go ahead and sit with that for a second because his supervisors clocked him as late and sloppy before they clocked him as anything else in the world's greatest Air Force. I'm biased. Said what I said. Now, baby, if we only had knew they had been the worst thing about him, the Air Force basically wrote a one-star Yelp review on this man and moved on about their day. Discharge, goodbye. Don't want to see you. Don't want to have anything to do with you ever again. But friend, the very next year after he was discharged, 1957, he was arrested and convicted of burglary and attempted rape right in LA, okay? Got 6 years for it. But two parole violations kept him locked up longer than he really should have been. Well, longer than his sentence was for initially. Let me clarify that. Now, he didn't get out until like 1966. And this was not a one-time slip either, friend. Okay. Over that same stretch, by LAPD's own case history on this, and I am quoting their exact words, okay? He racked up multiple burglary and arrests, and most of them involved sexual assaults of his victims. This boy couldn't even commit a simple robbery without adding something extra. The audacity to do the most. This man already had a documented pattern of sexual violence long before a single woman in this story ever died. And friend, that's not hindsight talking. That's really the record sitting right here in black and white for anybody who really cared to read it. And I cared to read it. Now, I do need you to notice something about him specifically, friend, not the paperwork, but him. This man who kept doing the same thing over and over again in the same general area using the same basic ass method for years without ever once second guessing himself enough to stop or even change it up. That's not panic. That's not desperation. That is absolute comfort. Comfortability is where he was operating from. And I do want to be real precise with you when I say that the record actually says, because precision is the whole job. Okay. Burglary arrests, plural. Sexual assaults connected to those burglaries, plural. This wasn't a man with one bad night in his 20s. that everybody was supposed to forgive and forget. This was an established, repeated pattern on paper for over 2 decades before the first body in this story ever hit the ground, friend. In 1972, the killings start, okay? Working mid Wilshire, Englewood, and Lennox, he starts targeting elderly women who live alone, breaking in their homes, raping them, and then strangling or suffocating them and leaving pillows or blankets over their faces. Police don't have a name for him yet. Now, this is 1972. There's no name. He fresh from prison in 1966, right? But the public eventually will know him as the West Side Rapist. Keep that little pin, put it on your sticky note frame. I'm gonna walk you through these women in order because these actually happened, okay? And that's how the story deserves to be told. So I'm gonna tell it to you plain, okay? When a case is the one he pled guilty to versus ones police believe is his but never got proven in a courtroom, I'm going to establish and differentiate. Now, November 25th, 1972, Ethel Sokoloff, she was 68, living alone in her home in Mid Wilshire. He gets in her house, sexually assaults her, chokes her to death in her own house. Okay. Now, we're going to remember Ethel as well, Ethel Sokoloff, because she's the first one. And this is where the whole file opens up. And I'm going to need you to remember her because I promise you before the episode is over again, you're going to hear her name again. All right. Now, he was eventually charged and convicted and pled guilty to her. And I want to explain real quick why I keep marking charged versus suspect as we go through this list, friend. Because charge means in the court of law with evidence and a defense attorney with all of that. They looked at this and then said, yes, this was proven. Suspected means investigators believe it fits his motive and his profile, but they never got the same test or something did not add up or just was missing for them to be able to say, yes, for certain, this was him. And he definitely didn't plead out to these either. Now, May 13th, 1974, Ethel Grimes, different Ethel, right? And it's spelled differently too. She was 81 years old, robbed and strangled her in her apartment. And he was never suspected in this case. Never charged in this case, but it's suspected in this case. And police do believe it fits his pattern. A court just never got a chance to say so. Okay. And then we move on to November 7th, 1974. May Scalisi, I believe that's how you say her name. 72 years old, murdered. The killer entered through her bathroom window. He was suspected, never charged. And the very next day, November 8th, 1974, Lucy Grant, 92 years old, was raped, murdered in her home. Signs of forced entry and burglary. Suspected, never charged. 1974, December. He's moving, like moving quickly, okay? December 4th, Ramona Gardner, 74, murdered in her apartment. Suspected, never charged. Now, that is 4 names in 7 months from May to December, okay? 4 separate detectives, 4 separate case numbers. This man is moving through all 4 of them without a single soul putting his face to any of it, all right? Now, remember, this is back in time where like DNA was still trying to be figured out, right? CODIS had not happened yet. So there's a lot of things that went into this. But we're going to keep going. March 22nd, 1975, we have Sylvia Vogel, 71, found under a blanket in the backseat of her car, beaten, raped, and murdered. I did not write it down in my notes, but I do think that she was the one whose dress was found at her waist, which didn't make sense because he had pulled it down from the top to her waist. Um, but yeah, so not I be trying to get in the minds of these killers and the things that they do just don't make sense. But I'm sure there's a reason for it. That's how I got to this podcast. Anyways, so April 8th, 1975, Una Cartwright, 78, raped and murdered in her apartment. Her door was left open. A TV was stolen. He was suspected but never charged. April 20th, 1975, Olga Harper, 75, last seen entering her apartment, Found beaten, raped, and murdered 3 days later. Suspected, never charged. 3 days before anybody went looking for her. It's crazy. It's crazy. Now, we move into September. September 20th, 1975. Cora Perry, she's 79. She was found murdered in Lenox, and when police go through the scene, the kitchen window was open. The screen was missing, and that is always that's I can't say always, but that's his way in. All right. Now we move on. He pled guilty to this one. Cora Perry, okay, pled guilty, charged, and convicted. And then we move into May 22nd, 1975. We have Effie Martin, 86 years old, beaten, raped, strangled in her apartment. Suspected, never charged, and some sources say at the time actually gave this killing a whole different nickname, the Wilshire area rapist, before anybody figured out it's the same man. Okay. Um, and then October, so we have two names for him already. And I messed up in the beginning because I said two, and I think it's actually three. Um, but we'll get there. Now, October 29th, 1975, Leah Lashevsky, 63, raped, strangled in her home, window forced open, apartment ransacked, suspected, never charged. 1975, November 14th, Lillian Kramer, 67, murdered in her apartment, and police at the time actually flagged it themselves, quote, certain points of similarity to the West Side rapist, end quote. He was suspected, never charged. All these names on that suspected list alone: Ethel, May, Lucy, Ramona, Sylvia, Una, Olga, Effie, Leah, Lillian, excuse me, and the other Ethel, right? The, it's absolutely crazy. And what bothers me the most about this particular story is the age. I don't like when people do things to people who cannot defend themselves. You are such a bully. That grinds my gears. It really bothers my spirit on so many levels to do things to people who are incapable of defending themselves. Children and elderly people they fit in that, and people with disabilities, they fit in that. It bothers me. Bothers me on so many levels. All right. Anyways, off my soapbox. Now, the police friend were themselves writing down the similarities with these situations, these killings, these rapings, these break-ins, and the pattern was sitting on paper. They just did not have a name attached to it yet, okay? So then we go into February 16th, 1967. And Elizabeth McCowan, 67, is reported missing, and 2 days go by before they find her raped, strangled, and stuffed in the trunk of her own car out in Westchester. Her own car, friend? The thing that it takes you from here to there, and this is why people be wondering why I be getting in my car so fast, because why are you taking so long to get into your car? All these people out here, you never know what somebody's trying to do. Don't be sitting around here lollygagging around your car trying to fiddle with your keys and do nothing else. But again, back to the topic at hand. So for Elizabeth McCowan in her trunk, he pled guilty to, was charged, and convicted. April 1976, Inglewood. Mabel Hudson, 80 years old, found in her garage, beaten, sexually assaulted, and strangled. Okay. She was 80 years old in her own garage, minding her business. Y'all just don't be paying attention to y'all surroundings. Please pay attention to y'all surroundings, even when you at home. Okay. Anyways, he was charged and convicted. Now, June, also in Inglewood, not far from Mabel, Miriam McKinley, 65, found beaten and strangled in her garage. Okay. Two women, same neighborhood, same year, same method, found in the same kind of place. All right. He was charged and convicted. October 29th, 1976, Inglewood again. Evelyn Bunner, 56, the youngest of the seven he'd actually plead guilty to, found slumped in the front seat of her car, okay? Oh, I made a mistake. It wasn't what's her name? It was Evelyn with her dress unzipped and pulled to her waist, okay? Bruises visible on her upper back. So let me make that correction. It was Evelyn, okay, with the dress. Now, he was charged and convicted. Now, by 1978, LAPD's own count puts the dead at 17 elderly women, friend. 17. And then officially it just stops. I know, friend. Why it stopped? Girl, friend, I'm finna tell you. All right. So he didn't stop because he found God or that he was like, oh my God, I can't keep doing this is just crazy of me to be out here brutally murdering and raping women. I just can't do that. Like God saved me from myself. No, he did not. Okay. And he also didn't do it because he got tired and bored. All right. He did it because in 1978, he rapes a 78-year-old woman in Pasadena. And they only have her name listed as Miss Sterling. And in that assault, this man breaks her ankles clean to the bone. But she survived, friend. She survived and crawled her way to a neighbor. Okay. And the neighbor happened to catch his license plate on the way out. And that is the one and only conviction that takes him off the streets this whole entire time. 5 years. Okay. And it wasn't even a sentence for the other murders, it was just for the Pasadena assault. So now here we are, 2 times arrested for burglary and assault, right? And he got a whole host of murders in between that he just out here committing. Now, he actually, once he got out in 1983, moved to Chino and almost immediately, it was like he couldn't wait to get out. 20 miles over in the Pomona Valley, centered in a city called Claremont, a brand new wave of rapes and murders starts. Same exact MO, blankets and pillows left over faces, okay? And now he has a whole different name, the Southland Strangler, because nobody has connected him to the other one, the Wilshire or the West Side, right? Now, friend, now how strange is it? Three different names, all these different newspapers covering it. The communities out here living in fear. Three sets of women looking over their shoulder in different parts of LA County, all scared of a man that they thought were three separate people. Now, he did get the benefit of the two fresh starts and the public imagination, right? And neither one of them ever had the answer for the other. At least five women died in Claremont in this way, and I'm about to give you the one that's been sitting at the top of my list for Claremont since I first read this file. But before I get there, I need you to notice something with me, okay? It's a brand new city, a brand new set of detectives who've never worked the West Side case, don't even know what's happening over there on the West Side or in Wilshire, right? And everybody is starting from ground zero when the truth was literally sitting in the evidence locker because as a burglary with sexual assault, I'm sure he had to register as a sex offender. Boop, boop, twice. Now, October 22nd, 1983, Isabel Askew is 85 years old, reporting missing from her Claremont apartment, and they find her 11 days later, friend, in a vineyard near the airport. Her body was so far gone that they couldn't even determine the cause of death. Suspected, but he was never charged because there was nothing left to charge it on. Okay. Now hold on to that apartment, friend, that address, that apartment, the name, because the next one, 3 years later, same apartment, June 1986, Adrian Askew, age 56. This is Isabel's daughter. She was still living in that same Claremont apartment where her mother disappeared from 3 years early. She was found sexually assaulted and strangled. A mother and a daughter, same address, 3 years apart. Now, I need you to understand nobody in that family got to bury Isabel with an answer. And then 3 years later, they're standing in the exact same room burying Adrian too. Now, think about what it would take to keep living in an apartment front after your mother disappeared out of it and never came back with an explanation. Because whether Adrian stayed out of grief or comfort or just moving, being expensive, and life going on, whether you're ready or not, I can't tell you that I would have stayed in that apartment. Like, I don't know that I would have been able to do it. Now, before we move on, one more thing on this family. And the sourcing was a little thin here, so I only have one source on this. A woman named Susan Askew Livingston connected and reporting to this family wrote publicly that her aunt worked as a school crossing guard and a librarian assistant, despite being developmentally disabled. It is one of the only pieces of real human detail about any of these women that made it into the coverage at all. And I'm giving it to you, but I want to be straight that the exact family connection was not crystal clear in what I found. So we're going to hold that loosely. Okay. Now, nobody knew that these were the same men. Okay. Not the police working Claremont, not the police working West Side, not the police working Wilshire. Okay. The Southside Strangler murder stopped around 1989, but his only other law enforcement contact this entire stretch was a prostitution arrest back in 1993. That's it. Nothing else in the paper for years. That same year in 1989, he stopped because he took a steady job as a claims adjuster with the state workers' comp fund in Glendale. Now, friend, reporters who seen him in court years later after everything comes out described him as gregarious. Gregarious? Really? You describe this man as friendly? I mean, from the previous stories, we know that people can be friendly as they want to be and then be out here being whole murderers. And that is, again, what we have right here. But they said he was the kind of coworker who would bring donuts on a Friday. This is what his coworkers said about him. Um, for no reason at all. That's the like gregarious, really? All right. You could have picked anyone. That's the one you put on his dating profile. It's not a dating profile. Let me stop there. Now, he works that same job, same desk for almost 20 years, and nobody looks twice. Not one coworker, not one supervisor, 20 years, and not a single office holiday party where somebody side eyed him and said, you know what? Something is off about that one right there. Don't go over near John. He a little nope, no, I say nothing other than he was gregarious, right? But we forgot he was slovenly. So over these course of these years, he must have got himself together and got better because he clearly didn't look slovenly anymore. He looked like a wholesome old man that you want to be hanging out with, I guess. Now, off my soapbox. So 20 years later, okay, a whole child was born, grew up, graduated high school, started their career by the time this man was sitting at that desk, gregarious and punching the clock, whatnot, filing insurance claims for other people's disasters while he was the biggest undiscovered disaster in the entire building. All right. Because we already established what he was doing to other people's property. He was breaking into it. So he over here creating disasters and then doing claims adjustments on the get sit down. Now, again, the audacity frame because he is literally sitting there at the desk processing claims, filing paperwork, being gregarious. I'm not going to stop saying that word because I am being petty. Now, he being gregarious. It's a whole DNA profile sitting in somebody's lab somewhere with his blood in it, just waiting for somebody to put a name on it. Because remember, sexual assault comes with what? You got to go register to be a sex offender and you have to give your DNA. Now, this man carries somewhere between 15 and 30 bodies. I am guesstimating because there is not an exact number. Okay. Now, for 20 years straight, and his paper trail is almost completely clean. I don't really have no joke for that one, friend. I just need to put that out there. So, we're going to go back to the open because it's time to close the loop. Okay. Now, 2001, LAPD opens a cold case unit. It's called the Open Unsolved Homicide Unit. Okay. It's built around this thing called CODIS. Remember, I told you it hadn't been built yet. Now we have CODIS 2001, the National DNA Database, and a cold case detective goes all the way back to the very first file in this whole case. Remember, I told you to remember the name, write it on your sticky note, Ethel Sokoloff, and they pulled a male's DNA off that evidence and had it. It had been sitting untested for decades, but they had it tested. Now, 2005, that same profile matches the Elizabeth McCowan scene, and now they know that one man did both. Same hands, 4 years apart, still no name attached to it. But remember, I told you sex offenders have to register and they have to give their DNA. We're going to get there. I know, friend. Stick with me. You know, I'm going to give it all to you. Now, by fall of 2008, a detective named Diane Webb organizes a sweep She wants cheek swabs from 92 registered offenders whose DNA never made it into CODIS. And this is where we come in, friend. Now, 92 man friend, think about that number for a second. 92 separate appointments, 92 separate swabs, 92 case files somebody had to pull to even build that list in the first place. That's not a hunch. That's months of unglamorous, tedious, thankless police work done by people who had no idea they were actually about to catch someone that they weren't even looking for because that sweep wasn't even about him, friend. Boom, mic drop. That sweep was built to catch a different serial killer called the Grim Sleeper. Now, he was believed to be responsible for at least 10 murders in South LA, still unsolved at this point. And he was not a suspect. He wasn't even a person of interest. I'm back to John now. Now, John was not, he wasn't a person of interest. He was just a name on the list of 92 that got swept up in the sweep of the DNA to find the Grim Sleeper. We might do a story on him later. I don't know. Let me know if that's what you want. But I'm gonna tell you about the Grim Sleeper for a quick second, okay? Because he is something on his own. Now, this is the killer who got his name because investigators believe he took a break for over a decade in the middle of his killings, went quiet, then started right back up like nothing happened. Different case, different neighborhood, different signatures, both taking breaks for two separate reasons. We know John was in jail for his, right? In jail or in prison. But we don't know what happens to the Grim Sleeper, and we will maybe get there one day because I'm kind of curious. But anyways, it's 2008 and now, the Grim Sleeper is public enemy number 1 for LAPD. Every resource, every detective, every ounce of urgency in that department was pointed at catching him. And in the middle of all that manpower, all that pressure, and all that citywide fear about a killer still actively working, this gregarious 72-year-old insurance claims adjuster, okay, in a red dress shirt, strolls in, opens his mouth, gives his DNA, and strolls back out unbothered. Okay. Completely unremarkable to everybody in that building that day. Like, he just strolled in, gave out his spit. And I wonder if he was wondering, like, oh shit, is this the day I'm going to get caught? Because why they need my DNA? Well, maybe he thought it was because he was a registered sex offender. And that is because they had found DNA on these people, but whatever the reason, he just strolled in there and kept on going. Okay. Now, in all of that, the irony is so thick, you could just serve it at Thanksgiving. The manhunt of the decade catches a completely different killer as a side effect, like reaching for your car keys and you find somebody's wallet instead. The only reason he made it on that list at all was the single flag on his record from those other incidences, right? The Pasadena rape conviction, the one with the broken ankles. And how mad you gotta be to break somebody's ankles clean cut across the bone? Like, what the Anyways, let's keep going. Now, remember, friend, she had survived, and had she not survived and that neighbor hadn't caught his plates, there would have been no red flag on his record. But, right? There's no reason that he would have gotten swabbed in 2008 and this man is walking around like free, okay? But 5 months later, March 2009, California DOJ calls LAPD and is like, we got a match. And it ain't the Grim Sleeper. It's for Ethel Sokoloff and Elizabeth McCowan. And I want you to picture that phone call for her friend because whoever answered that line expecting one name and got handed a case file from 1972 instead, my math to be a little off, but it's roughly 37 years, friend. That's how long Ethel Sokoloff was waiting on a hit on somebody's DNA. And his DNA actually ended up tying him to 5 scenes total across his Westchester, Wilshire, and Southside. Okay, murders. Now, March  31st, 2009, he is arrested at his apartment. He has $1 million bail and he resigns from his job not long after. Because at this point, he like, shit, y'all got me. And I need to keep working at this desk now. It's over. Now, I do wonder what that walk out of the building was like, friend, because 22 years of good mornings and gregarious small talk. And then one day he just don't come back and everybody at work. like chit-chatting at the water fountain, like, "Hey, did you hear about John? Yeah, I heard. That's crazy." It's not funny, but it's funny. Okay. Uh April 2009, April 2nd, 2009, he was actually formally charged with Sokolov and McCowan's murder. September 23rd, 2009, charged with five more. Cora Perry, Mabel Hudson, Miriam McKinley, Evelyn Bunner, and Adrian Askew. Now, remember I told you Adrian Askew, right? So 2011, in April of 2011, he's 74 years old and he pleads guilty to all seven of those counts and takes a deal, okay, so that the death penalty is off the table specifically for Adrian Askew. He has seven life sentences and one of them was without the possibility of parole, friend. Seven. Okay. Out of a number investigators believe could run as high as 30. I want you to know that both of those numbers, okay, is absolutely ridiculous. 7 out of 30 possible. Now, 7 again is what the courtroom could prove, but 30 is what the investigators believe. And the gap between those two numbers is where all of them uncharged names we were talking about earlier lives forever. Okay. Now, at sentencing, and I don't even think I named 30. All right. I named not even a fraction of it. But he sat at sentencing with his hands chained to his waist, using sheets of paper to shield his face from photographers like he was embarrassed by his behavior. Oh no, sir, don't be embarrassed now. Look at all these cameras. And that actually takes me back to because to be embarrassed in the courtroom and not want people to take your picture, does that mean that you did not want these women to see your face because you were embarrassed by what you're doing? Like, I really want to know the psychology behind it. And his brain should be steady. Because was it that you didn't want them to see you? And you were ashamed or were you embarrassed? Which one? They're both kind of similar, but not really similar. Like, were you ashamed internally of what you would? Anyways, okay. Anyways, now we're gonna keep focused because y'all know I got ADHD. Just stick with me. But the part that we gotta hold on to because LAPD's own robbery homicide cold case unit, Detective Richard Bingston told the LA Times, and I'm quoting this one exactly. He said, quote, when all is said and done, Mr. Thomas stands to be Los Angeles' most prolific serial killer. Now we know there are other prolific serial killers out there in the world. Uh, we will. I actually won't touch on one because he has been overly done. I feel like, but this one right here was prolific for Los Angeles. All right. Detectives said at sentencing, he remains the suspect in 10 to 15 more murders. Investigators believe the real number could run from 15 to 30 total. And on top of the murders, we're talking about a score of rapes with different points in the investigation, putting the number of survivors as high as 2 dozen, sometimes cited as 20 women. And that number moves depending on who's counting and when. So I'm gonna give it to you as a range, not a fixed number, because I that's the honest read here, and I can't find no fixed numbers to back it up. All right. So 15 to 30 murders, friend, as many as 2 dozen survivors. That's not a tidy case with a clean number on it. That's a man whose full damage nobody will ever get to fully count because too much time has passed, too much evidence has disappeared, and too many of the women who could have told their own stories aren't here to tell them anymore. Now, friend, the man they were actually hunting again was the Grim Sleeper, and he eventually was caught a full year later in 2010 through a completely separate DNA method called familial search. We actually, as I keep talking about this, we are actually going to cover the Grim Sleeper. Maybe next episode, maybe not. Now, the different case, different killer, okay? His name was Lonnie David Franklin Jr., a whole separate monster connected to this story only by the coincidence of that one single drag net that caught both of them years apart without ever meaning to catch either the one the way it did. Two of the most prolific serial killers in Los Angeles history in one single sweep in 2008 ends up being the beginning of the end for both of them. Now, we do need to go back one time to Los Angeles, right? To a night in Los Angeles when I opened the episode and I said it was one woman, one pillow, one home, two totally different task force, right? In retrospect, it's three totally different names on the paper, right? And it took a swab for somebody to finally put the face to the DNA and the names that they were giving this man. All right. There is absolutely no record of this man speaking for himself. There is absolutely no record of an interview, a personal statement, and at sentencing, all he did was say, "I'm guilty." I brought up that one woman, one home, one pillow because Adrian Askew is not Adrian Askew. Ethel Sokoloff is the reason he got caught, right? The DNA found on him, his very first victim. Now, I do want to be honest with you. I don't know what I would even want this man to say if he did start talking. I do, actually, I do. I don't know how you justify it, but I do want to understand like what happened to you. Why did you do it? Like, what made you put the pillow over it? Like, I am, friend, I don't think you understand how stuck I am on this pillow over the face because a pillow over the face with the strangling is it's not it's almost disconnected. Like if he was strangling him and he was looking him in the eye, was it's an intimacy to that. But the pillow of the face almost says that you are ashamed of what you're doing or you are embarrassed and you don't want this person to look at you because you're embarrassed and you're ashamed about what you're doing. So I have questions about this damn pillow and I have questions about the whole thing, but specifically about these pillows on the face because there's psychology there that I really just got to understand off my soapbox back to what we was talking about. I know, friend. I be all over the place. But okay, so we are going to close this out. 20 years, friend, that same job, same person, gregarious as he was, that man was out here carrying bodies. And the worst thing anybody had to say in his office was that he was friendly and gregarious and bringing them donuts. Okay. Now, again, everybody is hiding something. It's the hiding that's easy. You show up, you smile, you clock in, you clock out. You don't need a mask for that. His mask was his face. So, friend, the next time somebody tells you they can just tell they got that gut feeling, or when you get that gut feeling and you know something ain't right about somebody, monsters don't look like what we think they look like. And I need you to remember that from this one and I forget the other dude's name. Gosh darn it. I want to say it's like 2 or 3 episodes ago, right? But I need you to remember friendly, smiling, gregarious, okay? I'm gonna keep saying that word. But I also need you to remember Ethel Sokoloff too, okay? Not just as the first name in this file, as the woman whose case really sat untouched for 37 years and being the one that brought this whole thing down. Okay. Sometimes the receipts just need time and somebody willing to go back and actually look at it again. And that's what this whole show is about. Friend, if I'm being honest, going back and actually looking at these cases again because I am intrigued. So, 17 women in the first wave alone, 5 more in the second. We're going to go ahead and count the Wilshire under the West Side, right? Now, some of them with his name on the paperwork forever. That's the Corey Perry, Ethel Sokoloff, Evelyn, all of them ladies, right? And some of them who only have suspected next to their name, but we will never know. The evidence just did not survive long enough to prove it, or maybe he had done a better job at not leaving evidence in those areas, but I doubt it, right? Both of these groups deserve better than what they got, and both of the groups are the reason why I made sure to get this episode out today because when I picked it back up last night to look at it, I had the same feelings as I did the first time. It bothered my spirit. But anyways, friend, that's my side eye on this very late Wednesday. I found it, I read it, and now I'm telling you, you make it make sense however it makes sense for you. And listen, friend, before I go, we are not in the business of letting people play in our faces. But with that, I give you a quick update on the Starbucks because I did not start the episode with it. So Starbucks has done a really good job at communicating what they plan to do and what um what actions they plan to take as it relates to the young man at Starbucks, the barista saying nigga, and me being the only customer in the store and the only black person in the store. Um, they have done a really good job. They have asked for my input on what I think they could do better and how I think that looks, and I've given them some really valuable things, tools that they can implement. I am still in talks with Starbucks at this moment, and we will see what the outcome is. Last I heard last week on Friday was that this gentleman was suspended pending a investigation. And Starbucks is like the government. It's really hard to get fired, but once you do, you're gone because they built up enough of a case. But anyways, so I want you to take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember to side out responsibly and protect your peace and your energy. Okay. Oh, and listen, if you got receipts or something that had you like, what the fuck? Okay. Hit me up on Instagram, TikTok at the Side Eye Files, YouTube at the Side Eye Files Podcast, or you can email me, the side eye files at gmail.com, because you already know I want to hear it. And listen, I might even do something with it, but we will talk soon. All right, friend, go ahead and stay nosy. Finna head out. See you next Wednesday. Now, I need you to understand nobody in that family got to bury Isabel with an answer. And then 3 years later, they're standing in the exact same room burying Adrian too. Now, think about what it would take to keep living in an apartment, friend, after your mother disappeared out of it and never came back with an explanation. Because whether Adrian stayed out of grief or comfort or just moving, being expensive, and life going on, whether you're ready or not, I can't tell you that I would have stayed in that apartment. Like, I don't know that I would have been able to do it.